Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Fellowship's monthly podcast, live streaming podcast that we like to do every month. And this month we have our dear friends and some that may be very, you may know them very well, our lovely Kaye Cooper and Sharon Porter. Two long-time dedicated spiritual women who have been in education and business and have a broad range of experience in so many things, retreats and, spiritual retreats, and just doing so much for the community of spiritual believers. And we really appreciate you so much. Welcome to the show. And I just want to say this show is dedicated to angels. It's going to be a very practical show about angels and their involvement in our lives and how they work and how they help us and some of the things they do. And I think you might be surprised at what comes out in our show with Kaye and Sharon. So welcome to the show, ladies. It's so good to have
you. Thank you, Paula. I'm excited about being here and talking about this wonderful topic with Paula, of course, who is our great mother leader. So we so appreciate you.
Oh, I don't know how that happened, but it's just when you step up to serve, it's interesting what happens. If you just step up to serve with a whole heart, it's amazing what happens after that. And so I've always been delighted to be able to serve the likes of a community of believers and faithful people like you. So, like you both, it's been a joy and a delight.
Yes.
Well, we are just delighted to have you to talk with and explore this topic today, because I know how well you do this sort of thing. So we appreciate your being here with us, and we are happy to be here.
Oh, yay. It's a pleasure. So how did this, what brings you to this place where you want to share these amazing angel stories and encounters with angels and information about angels with our audience?
Well, when people start talking about angels, an awful lot of the time, the anticipation is that there's going to be some miraculous story about how angels saved us in some way. And there are stories like that. My mother-in-law tells one about driving along over a bridge, going over another road underneath, and this loud voice in her head saying, "Move into the right lane."
Wow.
And she went, "What? Move into the right lane." And so she did. And when she stopped at the light that was very close to the bridge, when she got off the bridge, here came this huge truck pulling a big trailer right through the red light, in the lane that she would have been in.
Oh my God.
It's chilling.
Those kinds of stories, you've heard those, and people kind of expect the angels to be going around saving us from whatever we've gotten into. So what we have been doing as we have learned about this aspect of God is that we've begun to watch our own lives to see where they might be encountering us and what they might be doing with us, because we've come to understand, primarily because we've read about angels in the Urantia book, which is the definitive
book on angels.
That they do a lot of things that we would be very interested in with us. They're teaching us is what they're doing. And when we cooperate with that, it makes a difference, because we can be taught more and more effectively you know, our understanding is that angels are actually the presence of that third person of the Trinity that is so mysterious to a lot of us, referred to a lot of times as the Holy Spirit, and that they are the embodiment, the kind of a downstepping of that third person of the Trinity that comes here to walk with us through the universe as we grow and learn and become people who can end up in paradise and arrive at knowing God fully. I think it's amazing, quite frankly, to have that kind of care and attention from God right beside us.
Oh, yes. It's amazing how they are with us. And they're always, like right now, working with us. They work with you singly, but they also work in contact of one person to another or to a group of people. Is that we learn to keep our spiritual antennas up. We learn to direct our heart and our spiritual self to observing and looking for them because we can see them through our spiritual eyes if we open them and train ourselves to know they are there and just be open. That's what I found, and I'm amazed so many times.
It's a matter of perception, isn't it? It's a matter of perceiving. And I think that is a heart issue. I think that if you obviously we can't see them, but if you open your heart, you can feel them and you can become aware of their work in your lives and their presence in your lives, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing. I know you guys have you've recently had some wonderful retreats with women. And one of the things that inspired you today was a retreat in which spontaneously the women in the group started sharing angel stories. And at least this is what I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it was a bit of a surprise. We were intentionally talking about angels, but what was surprising and what inspired this interest in sharing these things with other people is the breadth of the ways in which angels were described as helping these women and teaching them. So we thought we want to share this with people. We want to give people a better understanding of how they might be helped and taught. And one of the things they do is bring people together. Sharon's got a good story of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how many and where do I start?
So true.
I guess in the early 80s, it was that my husband and I started and put together a spiritual bookstore.
Yeah.
And we were in Austin, Texas. And it was quite unique. We learned so much in all that we did there and the books that we picked out. There was this point where I was getting ready to go off of my shift and leave it to another attendant at the counter. And I was at the front counter, and I love to work the front counter, mainly because I get to see and interact with all the people that come in. So it's always been a joy of mine to do that. Well, hey, I think angels work, right? So I was just getting ready to check out and leave, and the phone rings, and I just reached over and picked it up, and there was this lovely woman on the line, and she said, I've been wanting, and I've heard about your store, to know more about angels. Can you talk to me about them? Do you have any books in your store that are about angels and how they work in our lives? And I think she wanted to know more how they work with us. So, yes, I did, of course. And a whole section of books on angels. So she said, guess what? I said, well, I'm about ready to leave. And then I really realized it's like I got this ding. No, no, no. You're going to stay here and wait for her because she said she was coming right over. Sure enough, she did. Beautiful, mature woman, Philippa. And, later we really became friends and she loved to read the stories. But I recommended several books specifically on angels. And I remember we went over to some chairs sitting by the window and we talked for 20 or 30 minutes about angels and how they work with us. And so I sent her on with a copy of the Urantia book and other books on angels. And so I knew that in that instant, me picking up the phone and her coming in, the angels were doing that, probably laughing, like, oh, yeah, here we are.
I love that.
That was wonderful.
Nothing like evidence
Right.
to convince you, right? When you just put it out there. And, they really are tuned into us and they really do know what we're longing for, what we're hoping for. And sometimes I think it really helps to articulate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're so split second. I mean, just in a second, they've got things lined up.
They're masters of timing.
Yes.
And that story really illustrates the
timing.
Click, 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 and also little messages like, no, you stay here and wait for her.
I heard it. I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's an angel hearing or speaking so our ears hear. It's an inner, just a sentence or two popping into your head, and sometimes very loudly.
Like with your mom, right? Yeah. I have found they're marvelous in regards to bringing people together.
Oh,
people who need to be together. Like Sharon was just sharing about this woman, and they wanted you two to come together. Is the way I would understand that.
It felt like it. It really felt like it. And she wanted to know about angels.
Yeah. She had a good resource right there in you. So
I have a good story about bringing people together. This was a number of years ago. We were my husband and I were in Washington State and had gotten a car and were driving up toward Canada. And for whatever reason, we needed something at the grocery store. So we got off the freeway and boom, there was a grocery store right handy. And I ran in to get stuff. And of course, when I started checking out, there was this line. And, being kind of in a hurry, I could have gotten irritated quite easily and griped about it. But for whatever reason, I didn't. And the woman next to me started talking to me. And she told me about her loss recently in her life. She'd had a difficulty with a child. And I could tell as we were talking that she really needed to be heard.
Mm.
I'm sure I wasn't the only person in the world that was going to listen to the woman. I don't mean that. But I was someone she didn't know who took the time to listen. And so I gave her a little bit of comfort at that time. And went on my way. But once again, the bringing people together and the timing of things,
Right.
quite extraordinary.
What do you think is the role of the fact that you believe so much in angels? That you believe in them so much that you count on them and you actually enlist their help and ask their help, and even maybe ask them to go bless somebody who's having a hard time, or you put it out there to them that you're willing to help, somebody, you bring them to you and you'll do your best. But belief in them seems to be the key to all of that, don't you think?
I do.
Me too, very
That's
much.
a great point, Paula. It really is. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to share these things with people, is if you're aware, if you realize that not only may you find the work of angels in your own life, but you may be the person that is filling a need for someone else.
Mm.
And so the angels need your help.
Yes, they
To
do.
be
Oh boy.
that person that walks in the grocery store and listens to the woman who needs a little bit of help right then. It just
Right.
needs an ear to listen.
They depend on us. And, as you were speaking about belief, it was several years of really studying about the angels before I finally just got this message inside, kind of an internal feeling of, you need to pay attention to them more.
Mm.
And I still didn't understand what that really meant. But as I did, and this was slowly over time, it was not an overnight, oh, wow, I know my angels. It took me years to get there, but it is a knowingness now that I have, that I know my angels are working with me and for me and through me, as you said, Paula, through me. And in Kay's story of her just being right there, and then they can do their work. You don't know, probably much more, that woman was helped by Kay spending just a little bit of time communicating with her, comforting her. um, let's believe and know that they are with us, and accept the fact that they are right here with us right now. And indeed, one of the things that I've been doing is, when I get up, among my morning meditation times and my prayer times, I always bring my attention to, let me serve you, Mother, through your angels this
Mm.
day. And boy, it happens. It just happens.
Talk about practical. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? They descend all the way to where we are. The loftiest of the deities, the farthest removed from us, are actually infinitely close to us as well, because of the gifts of angels, or, the mystery monitor, the divine indweller, the spirit of truth. Jesus, the spirit of truth. These are all present ministries that are available to us at any moment, and we can tap into them and utilize them to help others and to help ourselves if we're in need. To just trust on their help. Their
That's right. Trust.
help.
Just trust.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just trust it,
You
because
know,
it's present.
Sharon just used the term mother. And one of the lovely things about coming to know angels is that you begin to see the motherliness of God. If you think about a small child, maybe a 1 year old or maybe a toddler, how a parent is there to help, there to guide, there to help the child begin to play things, help achieve things, not jump up in and do things for that little child, but help them achieve. And you start looking at angels as being the motherliness of God. God as a mother who is taking us along in just like a mother does with a small child who is toddling along and beginning to learn how to get from one chair to another and hang on when they get to the to the second. It's wonderful to feel like there is someone who feels about you like the very best of mothers does. That wonderful, loving, caring manner of God, and the angels are so much like that. They also, as Sharon mentioned, they also have kind of a sense of humor.
Do you have an example of that?
Well, we did have an instance that this was many years ago. My husband and I were in kind of a bad spot. I was having trouble with tolerating some things like the fumes from gas in a house. We lived in a house where the heat and the stove and everything was powered by gas. And the doctor said, "You're gonna have to move." And so we had to find a house. And then my husband had to redo it because I also needed not to have carpets on the floor and down tile and all of this stuff. So he was working very hard. And we were kind of panicked about all of this. And we had an alarm that would play the radio station when it came on instead of buzzing, And so many mornings, morning after morning, I mean, literally one after another, that radio would come on with a song that was popular then, and the words to the refrain were, hang on, help is on the way." The second and third time we heard that, we just burst into laughter.
Yeah.
It was funny, but it was so encouraging to us. And we really felt like these were our friends doing this for us.
Yeah.
Encouraging us in that way. And what a wonderful thing to have someone you can trust. You know that there are going to be times when they're challenging you too, but they also are there for you to encourage you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think they chuckle along with us in some of our foibles. And I won't even go into detail, but I had a ridiculous one. No, I can't. It involved a mirror, and that's all I'm going to say. But anyway, it was funny because I could not get it adjusted just right to do a certain thing, which was slightly vain. And I remember just feeling this sense of somebody's chuckling at me. I don't know, but I began to laugh too. And it was like, give it up. So I did. I don't know, but it was funny.
Oh, I've had, there's so many stories, right, that you hear over the years, and so many you personally have. But I'll share one that was insightful to me, and it explains some other things that I had been pondering about them for quite a while. And I was driving to work, and I had a decent commute, 30-minute commute. And so I love to spend that time just thinking about God and Jesus and the angels and spiritual matters, and just devote that time, because you're going, somewhere where you go every day. You could almost go on autopilot. And I have found that when you're talking to God and praying or contemplating angels or whatever while you're driving, you kind of go into this super conscious place where you're very aware of everything around you. And I was talking to them and telling them, as I did almost every morning, to watch over my children. And I told them, I said, I know I ask you this a lot. I know I ask you this every day, but I just love them so much.
Mm.
They are so important to me. I just love them so much. And I heard them say, as clear as a bell, well, we love them too. And I was just immediately sobered by that. I was like, oh, you do. I know you do. And I told him, I said, you love them more than I do, and I can't even imagine that. You love my grandmother and my grandmother's grandmother and my father and my father's father, and you love all of our ancestors all the way back. You love everything that culminated in me and everything that culminated in them. And of course you do. And, it just makes me feel better to ask you to watch over them. But I have absolute faith that that's what you do. And I know that's true about you. And it was just insightful, right? They gave me an insight that, well, okay, but you can ask us every day if you like, but we love them too.
Oh, Paula, that's wonderful. That is just wonderful because they do. It's amazing. They do love us.
Right.
They care for us. They really do.
Well, the Urantia book calls them guardians of destiny, right? And we've heard the term guardian angel before, but to add that word destiny, it reminds me of your story of your mom, Kaye. They were guarding her destiny, and there was a reason why she, that accident might have killed her or rendered her incapacitated for the rest of her life, and they didn't want that to happen, so they preserved her destiny by moving her out of the way. And of course, your mom's free will would dictate that she didn't have to move or pay.
Right.
But isn't it true, ladies, that when you don't heed their word, you regret it? You're her favor. You're just
Yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's always disturbed me about expecting all of the angel stories to have to do with saving us, because I can't imagine someone expecting the angels to save their child or themselves or whatever, and being disappointed that they weren't helped. So it's important to realize that that's not the primary thing, and they don't go around saving everybody from everything.
Right. Obviously.
We have no idea why sometimes that happens. And
we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, I'm sure they are quite busy in this regard. I believe there are groups of angels that have to do with politics and government, but they work with individuals in government. And I was thinking the other day and talking to Kaye about this, thinking back to during the war, Winston Churchill, I do believe, was touched by and helped in some of his speeches that he gave when that was before the United States jumped into the war and Hitler was just on the rampage toward England. I think they work with human beings to empower and to strengthen them and to take them and help them meet with certain individuals that possibly change the course of history. Now, does that happen every day? Probably, but we don't know that. But
Probably.
I'm not going to declare that I know that, but I know there are groups, about that, Kay, a little bit more, of angels that work with individuals in government. And
They're highly organized, aren't they?
absolutely, yes.
Very efficient and highly organized.
Yeah, I think we make a mistake to say, oh, well, God's on the side of one party or another.
No.
Nothing like that. But the thing about your example there of Winston Churchill was that the people in the country were being bombed nightly, and they had to go to air shelter, air what do you call them? Air raid shelters,
Right.
and it was really a hard time. And like you said, they were alone, and to be able to say the kinds of things that Winston Churchill did. And Winston Churchill wasn't this wonderful spiritual person, particularly. I think he drank a lot, and yet he was able to say things that gave people heart,
Yes.
and enabled them to keep going and make it that kind of encouragement. And that's, that was what I was talking about when I was the hang on. And to be able to enter into the verbiage, let's say, of one person and affect a whole country.
Right.
It's quite amazing.
Do you think they're the heroes of progress? You're right. They don't choose sides. I know they love all of humanity. But if there is a progressive group of humans trying to do something that represents an evolutionary step forward for humanity, do you think the angels might give them a little more help than, say, a group that's not doing much to progress, to help humanity progress forward?
Well, I certainly get that impression that that they're there and quietly working with people, whoever will allow them to work with them and through them to help us. In times when you feel pretty discouraged about things, and that a lot of people are pretty discouraged right now, maybe even a little frightened.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to think that there are people who we may not see, but they are there trying to make things work out well by working with individuals. So it's an encouragement of a different level to just know that there are angels for whom that is their thing. That's what they are working to achieve, is to try to help our civilization move forward in a positive way.
Because they see the larger picture.
Right.
We see at times with such blinders on our eyes, and our angels coming from the infinite just know a whole lot more. They are not future tellers, but they absolutely know more and can see more. And that's why I think when we can connect up with them, we can internally say, I really want to be of service on this planet. I want to grow, I want to serve others, and I want to be of service on this planet to lift it up into, as Kaye was saying, a higher level, because we have a ways to go to get to just being a peaceful society. Well, that's one goal right there.
Right.
And so when we can hold ourselves as available servers and available helpers toward that goal, they will use us. And that's what they do. They are here to help us work through the practical details of our lives and to the larger picture of peace and goodness on this planet.
Right.
Yeah.
And even down to individuals, right? When some individual is suffering and you're in that proximity and they can guide you toward that suffering individual, as you pointed out, Kay, in the grocery line or wherever it may happen to be. If you're open to it, then they will use you to bring comfort.
Yeah.
Being used by them is a treat. You kind of feel it's happened when it happens, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like there's an echo, and you go, "Oh, something special happened then."
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that has been really happening, I know in my life, and I think in Sharon's too, especially over the last year and a half, has been a growing awareness of the meaning of the events in my daily life. Sharon was mentioning helping us to make it through our daily lives and to work through them. What I've begun to realize is that the hassles that we go through, the situations where we could just certainly be irritated by this, by what has happened, little roadblocks, little situations where, well, I seem to get in it so frequently with companies. I guess I have to be the one at our house to deal with calling AT&T or calling some other company and
corporation.
Yeah, getting them to. And it wasn't terribly long ago, just a few weeks ago, that I had such an adventure that way. I spent hours on the phone trying to get through to a person because I had a problem that the automated system was not going to be able to recognize and understand, much less help me with. It's out of their list of, well, we can help them do this and this and this and this.
Right.
And every time they would shift me over to something else, it was another automated response. I spent that whole day that way. I didn't ever get to a person that day. And I was trying to deal with all of this with grace and without getting upset, because I've been working on that a lot for this last year and a half, of responding to the little things that bother you in daily life in a different way, looking at them as opportunities to respond in a more godlike way. And quite frankly, I can get pretty angry and ugly to people on the phone if they won't do what I want them to do. So I knew I had something to learn there. So the next morning I started again and started trying to get to a person. I finally did. And I had the most extraordinary experience when I got there. this was, someone with an accent in another country. I couldn't understand the English terribly well. But this was a precious person. I was so thrilled to be talking to a real human being. And I just fell in love with this person.
Ah,
Just did all sorts of things to help me. It was, I realized how wonderful an individual person is. And I realized, when Jesus stopped talking to his apostles so he could go and help a woman across the road with her burdens, I know he wanted to help her and he was being gracious and serving her. But I think he was also fascinated to meet every person he met, because that's the way I look at people since that experience. Everybody, fascinating. And I talked to a number of people over the next few days, just working on. I was having quite a long experience on the phone, and every person that I talked to seemed just fascinating to me, and they were so helpful. And when we would get off, they would say, "Oh, it was so lovely talking to you." Yeah. I felt like, "Oh, no, it was so lovely talking to you."
Oh, I insist.
I insist. No, the pleasure is mine.
Talking to machines can be very dehumanizing,
Yeah, but you see what I'm getting at is that I know just as surely that was orchestrated for my benefit, to enable me to learn to love and to realize that you may be at home a lot, having to use the phone instead of being face to face with people. But you don't have to worry about learning to love a new person each day. Just get on the phone and there'll be a person to learn to love.
Yeah. Very good. Very good point. Amazing. Really, how that works. It's helpful to have another personality on the other end. But it's helpful to appreciate that you have another personality too. And I think that's what you're saying is your encounter with the machines helped you appreciate the real person that much more. And that is special. And I think that's the purview of the angels, bringing us real people together for meaningful interaction and for, all the wonderful things that happen when we come together and the things we can do together. We were talking about groups earlier. It's like those social architects. There's a whole group of angels that do nothing but bring people together. That's what they do.
Oh, don't you love it? I love that so much. Yes.
Yeah. And then you see how they work. In retrospect, you can look back over your life and see how it worked.
Absolutely.
It's really quite extraordinary. Kaye, you for years did your retreats, and you one of the exercises, I think you both did actually. You did it together. You guys as a 4 people, 2 couples did retreats together.
Actually, it was 3 couples.
3 couples. Yes, that's right. It was
Carol and Skip Weatherford.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know one of your techniques was to get people to write a letter to God. And it's very powerful to put your thoughts down on paper, right? What you want to tell God. And I think the other part of it was to write what you think God would write back to you as well. And I was at a women's retreat where we wrote a letter to the angels, and we said, this is what we're really looking for in life, and can you help us find these things?
Oh, nice.
And I think it's very powerful to articulate that and be very clear. The lesson for all of us was, and the admonition at the beginning of this exercise was, to be very clear about what it is you want. The more precise and specific, the better.
Yeah.
You know? And I wrote a letter. My daughter felt kind of funny about it, but she was looking for someone in her life, her meaningful other, her life partner. And she was so longing for that, and she felt silly about it. And I said, well, let me write the letter. I said, I think I know you well enough to know what it is you're looking for, and let me write the letter. And she agreed to write it for her. And so I spent some time and I wrote this letter, and I was very, very specific. And not long ago, I found this letter I wrote to the angels for my daughter's partner. And man, did they deliver.
Oh, Paula, that's wonderful.
After, and I got as specific as, the kinds of music she likes. And I hope she likes the same kinds of music. And oh my gosh, they just delivered like you can't believe. And one of my friends in community said that the cosmic waitress just took your order.
That's fantastic. Oh, I like that. Be specific is what you're saying. Sure.
If you're praying for the health of a friend, or you're praying for the welfare of a child, and you're going to write an angel a letter about that, be as specific as possible about the wonderful things you'd like to see happen in that child's life, or that friend's life, or your own life for that matter. Because the exercise was for you to write your own needs, but my daughter felt silly about it. So I did it for her, and she agreed. It just goes to show they're very mindful of our needs and our desires.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just find that sometimes I will have a need, and it is something that I need very, very much. And sometimes just financial situations come through that I can do that. And so I'm not shy about talking to them. Of course, I'm talking to God, but they are um, God's helpers. They are assistants to God and Spirit. But yeah, don't be afraid. Go ahead, trust, believe. They are here to help us through our daily lives and just difficulties and situations that you wouldn't even think anyone would care about. Yes, they do.
Well,
Spirit does care.
Yeah.
I do want to put in here, though, that there are times when you pray really hard and you don't get what you thought was a perfectly good prayer. You don't get the answer you wanted. When I was in high school, I mentioned earlier that I can get angry. And I knew at that time that I had a little problem with anger. And I wanted God to help me to control my anger. And I prayed, night after night, after night after night about it. And I didn't see any improvement. And I really did not understand why God couldn't answer that prayer. I mean, isn't it something God wants for me? It took years for me to realize that it was going to take years for anybody to make that kind of a difference in me. And I had to cooperate with every step along the way. And I'm still learning those kinds of lessons. The example I gave about not getting upset with the people on the phone, but seeing them as real people, that was another step in getting the answer I prayed for when I was 17.
Amazing.
Long time coming sometimes, certain answers to prayers, right?
And they don't come in quite the way you think they're going to.
Right.
Usually they're a whole lot better. But sometimes you pray perfectly good prayers and you don't see a reason why they aren't answered. Those are just that's just part of this mystery of life and the what we have to cope with as we are growing and learning. Because I don't want anybody to have the experience of having their faith harmed by thinking that they will get whatever.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I have a friend, a dear spiritual sister, whose child lost her firstborn, right? It was stillborn. And she was on the plane to go visit her newborn grandbaby when she learned of this. And she shared with me that she got very angry at the angels because she thought that there was something they might do about it. You know, they might have done about it. And I do think people stumble over life when life throws a real curveball at you, and you know you have this great faith, but I guess your faith is that all you have to believe that everything has a reason and a purpose that's for the greater good, especially in the lives of believers.
Mm.
Well, there's also the fact that everyone else has free will, and sometimes you get tromped on because someone else has exercised their free will.
That's true.
And God doesn't step into those situations very much. It just is part of the price we pay for living here and being such small and early children in the universe.
Right.
So there are lots of things that you just have to deal with the best you can on this.
Yeah.
But there are several things. We've been talking about people helping each other by responding to, oh, I think I'll go do so and so, or whatever it is, and you go ahead and respond, and then lo and behold, you connect with someone who needs something, or maybe you connect with someone who has a gift for you. Well, there are other things that angels use too, and I wanted us to be sure that we mentioned some of those. Sharon, you want to tell your story about the
I do.
music we love? one of our pieces of music.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, at the bookstore, I had the intense joy of picking out music to carry in the store. And it was a spiritual bookstore. And so there was a lot of music coming out that was just very creative and very different, but also so inspiring, spiritually inspiring, that sometimes you just want to weep. Other times the joy just rises up in you. So one day I was playing music in the store, and it actually was a CD, an album by a man named Chris Spheris, Spherris. And oh, it was just so intense and beautiful. And I remember someone came in and heard it, and they just fell in love with it. But let me tell you another one. There's an album by a man named Ray Lynch. And this is the one I want you to pay attention to, Raylynch. And on this album is a song called The O of Pleasure. And yes, it is. It has highs and lows. In fact, we used to use it, Kaye, in some of our retreats for like a closing circle, because the energy that flows through that particular piece is incredible. So I was in the store, I was playing that, and I saw a woman come in, and I saw her turn to look and browse at the music. Well, the music stations and the PlayStations were right in front of the counter, so we could see. And she came up to me and she's, oh my gosh, that song is so incredible. And do you have the album? And I pulled it, of course, and I let her just hold it there. And she said, I need to listen. Well, we have demos of a lot of the music there. So I instructed her to take the demo and go and sit in the listening chair. And she was just weeping for the longest time as she was listening to that music and that song in particular. So the angels work with individuals, and nature and music sometimes are so inspiring to us that we feel the presence of God. And in this case, I am sure she was, because that song is incredible. It's called The O of Pleasure. And this artist, Ray Lynch, did such a great job with it. But it was inspiring. And I know our angels lead us to one another and to events and to situations that can help us grow, help us worship God. There's just so much in music. And so I would say, be aware of the music and how it's helping you, and share it with others as well. You never know when you're going to talk about some music and it's inspiring for another person.
By the way, Sharon, I was going to say, I remember the name of that album in case people are interested. It's Deep Breakfast.
I love that album.
Yeah. Oh, you know it. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
It's a classic.
Yeah, well, we have lots of good ones.
You won't believe it. And to your point, Sharon, that angels do help artists create beautiful things that inspire people. And, you know, if you open up to the universe and tap into that vast creative energy that exists within them, you're tapping into an eternal fount of creativity. But, you know, we're out of time, ladies. Can you believe that? So much fun. I could talk to you all day.
It's been so great. Thank you. Thank you, Paula.
Of course. And I just want you to be able to wrap up if you want, in closing thoughts. And I know people can share their stories, their angel stories at storyline.664@gmail.com. If you have an angel story that you want to share with Kaye or Sharon and many of the other lovely ladies that are involved with you guys, and I know you represent a whole group of women that are devoted to this very thing. So, but any thoughts in closing, my friends?
You know, it's all about awareness.
Right.
And we have some wonderful friends here that want to be closer friends. So that's kind of the last thing I'd like to say. Just realize that you've got some friends you can begin to come to know.
Yeah.
Angels are our friends and our helpers.
They are our friends and helpers.
And we can be their helpers.
Yeah.
Friends.
So important. You know, I think that's something that we haven't said, but it's true. You know, they long to help humanity, but those of us who are willing to tap in with them, become their eyes, become their ears, become their arms, their loving arms, their heart, you know. And sometimes it's just a matter of listening, right? The best thing you can do for someone is just listen as they pour their heart out. You know?
Yeah. I've had people talk and thank me for all that I'd done for them. All I did was listen.
No, but that's just true. That's just spiritually being aware and being fragrant in yourself and allowing yourself to just be the vessel for them.
For them, right. That was a Jacksonian technique, to just listen, and people unburdened all, and that's such a invaluable service, really. So meaningful and beautiful. Well, thank you for all your many years of service and devotion to lifting people up spiritually, helping them find God, know God, find angels, know angels, find our mother, know her.
Yes.
You just never stop. And I so admire and appreciate you. I can't express enough.
Thank you. You too, Paula, for all the work you do. I really do.
It was so great to be here today.